Let's discuss It's Happening Out's Hot Topic this week. It's sponsored by the American retail chain Hot Topic, with nearly 700 locations specializing in counterculture-related clothing and accessories representing many varied interests of the LGBTQ plus community, including music, movies, graphic artists, gaming, and more. Hot Topic features one of the largest collections of Pride merchandise that celebrates all aspects of the LGBTQ plus community. Hot Topic is a major supporter of the diversity of our community and supports many events, festivals, and nonprofit LGBTQ plus organizations. And that's why they are the sponsor of It's Happening Out's Hot Topic. October was National LGBT History Month. While celebrating the community and its history, we honor Pride's radical origins at the Stonewall Inn in 1969. But what we don't often hear about are the other political actions and uprisings that have advanced the LGBTQ plus rights movements from as far back as the 1920s through today. Crucial milestones like the 1920s, the Society for Human Rights, 1950s foundation of the Mattachine Society, and the Daughters of Bilitis. Compton's Cafeteria Riot of 1960s, and starting the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence and organizing street transvestite action Revolutionaries STAR in 1970s. Through spreading across a span of a few decades have helped shape LGBT history. This month, we should proudly celebrate everything and everybody who is queer, known or unknown, from the past or from the future or from anywhere in between. This week's hot topic is LGBTQ plus History Month has ended, and many people still don't know the fight started long before Stonewall. What's everybody think?
And it's true.
¿Qué piensan?
Mija, listen, a lot of things a lot of things are not taught in schools. I came from a school here in Broward County. I learned nothing.
Nothing at all.
The GSA was maybe 4 people and 1 teacher, and that was throughout all middle and high school. And, you know, a lot of that comes from what parents want to have their kids be taught and what teachers want to actually teach. And I want to especially point out that, you know, Palm Beach almost unanimously allowed, as a committee of school, they almost unanimously voted for October to be recognized as LGBTQ plus History Month. One person did not vote for it, unfortunately, while, you know, Broward and Miami-Dade were very divided on that. So there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of education that's not happening. I'm a youthful, still 24 until December, young gay. I know everyone else looks so old here, who doesn't know a lot of history. Half the shit Faye just talked about, I haven't heard of. And that says something.
So I'm gonna say that the fact.
Pan back to Cameron real quick. Can you pan back to Cameron real quick?
Can you do a close up? Can you?
Okay.
We were
now.
all thinking it.
We're done.
Yes. Oh my gosh! So we were all thinking it because I was about to go right in there, bitch. You might be the youngest one, but you don't even. You hell sure don't look like it.
Everyone's gonna be in history.
Yeah.
You were gonna be
right here today. So. The blessing that you had a GSA. A lot of us never
didn't
knew
have that.
what that was, and so you know that's a blessing. Some of us did not.
No, absolutely.
And so
I'm old 20 years.
And doing the research, learning about the 1960 that Cafeteria Riot was amazing because, you know, even in Compton, the marginalized stories in marginalized communities, we don't share our stories enough because it leads to violence. You know, the police being taken over, which is not always a positive thing. Or it leads to hurt, people disappear. So we don't often have the ability to share those stories. And so I love reading about that. And even as sisters, you know, luckily here in the leather community, here in South Florida, I happen to know someone who was around during those San Francisco days. Also, shout out to our production, who was a member
David
of
Hopkins,
the Sisters.
who was a, yeah.
See, I was trying to, I said production, but she went out her name. So
Please,
shout out to David.
come on, he wants,
But
come on.
That's
Hopkins with an H.
Okay.
with an H, with a capital D, with a capital D. But who shared with me some of the history, and one of the things that he enlightened me with was that the reason that they wore makeup, because, you know, during that time when you went out and did that work, you also got pointed at, you also got treated differently, you also got put in, you lost your job, you lost those things, and so they wore that make to hide who they are, to still do the good work.
Wow.
And so he shared with me photos of some of the people who are not even still around today, but he's able to share those stories. And what I did was I begged of him, please share this with somebody else. Somebody else needs to know the good work, that you do, because he's no longer a sister as well, but that you have done this, you have laid the foundation, so we can now take the mantle and keep it going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. At Fort Miami, what we started to do was interview people in the community that were doing great things, that have, real knowledge firsthand knowledge of the history, of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach is what's happening, including Anita Bryant. We would interview people, and we have archives of these videos, and we keep them just in case the museum wants them. And we're going to create like an archive of these kind of historic landmarks or monumental moments that have happened. We don't expect these schools to teach our history.
Wow.
They didn't teach us about Black history. Why the fuck would they teach us about LGBTQ plus history? I'm not expecting them to do that. I didn't learn mine from school. I learned it from people before me and from documentaries, to be honest. And even that, we get our shit wrong.
Yeah,
a lot of our
it's like playing telephone. You know, it changes. Every single time that you tell the
story.
So
I don't expect them. I'm not going to get mad at it. I just know that my job is to continue to share my stories and what I've learned with the youth. Maybe not Cameron. Cameron now is considered history, but we should still continue to do that because I can't expect, and nor should you expect, anyone else to do our job for us.
Right.
No, for real. And, with all these anti-LGBTQ plus laws and don't say gay and all that, they're trying to erase us. They don't want any kind of history that pinpoints that we were a part of anything in the past, And this is exactly what they're doing by not teaching the history in school. So what Forward Miami's doing, or, what Caoba's doing for also BIPOC folks.
Absolutely.
It's so important because we're being erased.
Oh my gosh,
And you're saying maybe not to Cameron, but you know what, Papi? You're in your 40s. He's in his 20s.
I'm not in my 40s, fuck.
Papi, it's our job. Listen to me.
No, you're right.
It's our job to teach these fuckers how it went for us and other people. We need to go to our older folks and find out what they did to help us get here.
And we're still alive and we're still kicking. And so speak on that level. Last week was Miss Major Griffin Gracie's birthday, who is one of the fighters at Stonewall, and she's still celebrating her birthday, still living her life.
What?
Purchased her book. She's a new book. She's also doing touring now. So we have to listen to those elders. We have to now pay respect to those people. Although Cameron says he's the youngest one, but look like the oldest, we have to now get the foundation to say stop running off of this and open up these, and so you can now take this history because we're blessed. But tomorrow we may not be, but we need you to pass these stories on. And that's what's important. We can no longer hide behind the fact of having gone arrested or having been taken away and been kidnapped and having to fight for your life to come back and tell a story.
And to that, I think people, sometimes like I'm done being an activist. Like I'm done trying to teach people, trying to reach people to where they're at. But in this instance, like it's so much, it's rewarding to see someone light up when they figure out what it was like for me. Like when you show someone, bitch, I didn't have a cell phone in my time. I had to run and knock to your house.
There was no grinder. There was no grinder.
You had to keep a quarter. You had to keep a quarter inside your phone to go to the payphone.
Yeah, like I had a beeper.
Right.
Then I had a beeper. You know what I mean? We had so much before
code.
that.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to use a rotary phone. Like when their lights are going to turn on when you show them what it was like. Yeah. They may not receive anything from it in terms of like how they're going to progress in their life, but they're going to appreciate what it took for us to get to where we are today.
Exactly. And that's the thing is appreciation. Yeah. Nobody appreciates the ones before us. Now, we spoke about Stonewall, right? During that time, if you got caught at one of these places, your picture was put in the paper.
It's crazy.
Your name was put in the paper. So if you weren't out to your family or to the organization you worked at, guess what, baby? You had a pink slip when you got to work. Your whole world was destroyed for just being queer. Okay? These young kids don't understand that. If you were a girl and you wore a jacket and a tie, if you had more than 2 pieces of clothing on that didn't meet your gender specifics, you were arrested. And this is not too long ago.
And so folks think they think San Francisco has always been gay. So we talked about those cafeteria riots in San Francisco at the Tenderloin. And so you mentioned about the women who wore a suit. You dressed inappropriately, arrested. Our trans women, arrested. Gay hustlers, arrested.
You know where that started, right? That started before San Francisco started in Miami.
Oh, that part.
We led in the most traumatic experiences in the history of LGBTQ+.
Wow.
It was before Stonewall. Miami started that bullshit. Then Anita Bryant came. But all that happened in San Francisco was because they learned from what happened in Miami. And people don't know that. They don't realize that. And we had an exhibit here in the Miami Museum that showed all of that. Wow. People didn't show up, so people don't know.
Wow.
We were the forefront of the LGBTQ+ history.
And talking about not showing up, so 2 things. Number 1, shout out to the Palm Beach County Public School District who just recently passed the LGBTQ+ History Month, and it'll be recognized in the 24-25 school calendar year next
Isn't that
year.
what Cameron said?
It is,
Yeah.
but I
So-
like Al's voice.
But I just
I
want
was
to
like,
give
wait a minute. I'm like, it's a fucking
sounds
echo.
better than Brown.
I'm like, is it an echo?
I just want to congratulate you.
I don't let nobody go by. I don't care if it's my bestie. He still don't get over.
I said it better. So anyway.
We're uplifting Brown.
Right.
I heard it in a brown voice.
Two
It sounded
things
different in a brown
also
voice.
about not being part of the discussion. So I attended some of these meetings from Miami-Dade County Public Schools and Broward County Public Schools. And 10 to 1, they outnumbered us talking against LGBTQ plus History Month. There wasn't enough of us there fighting for this. And it's our community's fault. We weren't there to talk about why this was so much important. I wish Max was here to talk about it because he was actually at one of the district meetings. You know, at 21 years old, you know, I'm a product of the Broward County Public School System. He's a product of the Palm Beach County Public School System. And, you know, he was there advocating for us. But there was more of them talking about why, you know, we shouldn't do this. And it's because of the narrative that they've painted. They painted this narrative that LGBTQ plus History Month is basically having pride in schools, which is not the case. But that's the narrative that they painted, and that's the narrative that the school board voted on because we weren't there to represent our LGBTQ plus history, or, you know, those who have come before us that are actually history makers, of like why we need this month and why we need to learn, you know, because we existed and we're always going to exist and we're going to exist. But the problem is our community is just interested in going to pool parties.
So no,
And I'm sorry to say that. Let me finish what I'm saying because, you know, there was a call for people to go to these school board meetings, for people to come out and support in numbers. No one showed up. No one showed up. But when
Did you show up?
Yeah, I went. You know, so but when there's a pool party, when there's Pride, you know, when there's all these events, people show up in droves.
Before you jump in on that,
sorry, but it's a really important part because we can't sit here and talk about, oh, you know, woe is me, you know, and fuck everybody else because this didn't happen. Where the fuck were you?
Yeah.
Why wasn't anyone at these school board meetings talking about our history?
Yeah.
So what
Brittany?
I learned about my gay history before I learned about it before I was gay. Before I even knew I was gay. Again, man, Sundance and the Independent Film Channel was coming through in the 90s, right? And so I remember watching all of these documentaries. One of them was called The Celluloid Closet, and it was about, because we all know in Hollywood there were gay people left and right, you know,
Beginning of time.
Yeah, and so they left clues for all the gay people to come down the pipeline. And so they told us how to like recognize when it was like, hey, this was supposed to be a girl here. The reason why we put this person here was because we're trying to show you that we support you, right? So I kind of went into my 20s as a straight guy going like, hey, y'all, did you realize that all of this shit is gay? Like, and people are, you know, it's like they're reaching from the grave to like try to make things happen. So I would try to like, you know, understand all these things from the 1920s, all this iconography that you're showing right now on there. Like, I researched all of this stuff, right? And then I realized like how difficult it was for me to talk about it because unless you were around people who were accepting of gay people, ain't nobody want to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, your family doesn't want to hear that. Like, and to your point about, you know, in the 20s and stuff, I remember back in my 20s, like, in my town, it was most like it was the early 90s, but it might have as well been like the early 70s, like how backwards it was and how like super podunk, like Southern it was. And like trying to talk to these people and like make younger people understand how difficult it was. And like to understand sometimes the points of views that maybe when younger people are like saying, no, you all should be so progressive, you should be do that, like not understanding like how difficult that struggle was and like how we came through on it on the other end. So I do think that generational thing, like we need to have more understanding for each other. And to Cal's other point about
it's only a half hour show.
I know,
already.
but
Let's
to
go.
Cal's other point about showing up, I felt that way in this community for 10, 15 years. Ever since I came out, I've never been able to find my place because that's kind of where my place was. And I've never really felt it in
So do you show
the
up
other
at
stuff.
board meetings? At
I
school
do
board
show up
meetings and
things.
stuff like
Yeah.
that?
I was watching Max on there and I was texting him while I was there, like, good job, Max, you
You was
know?
watching him when you were there.
Queen.
I couldn't be there. I was working.
So
on that particular day, but I show up.
Listen, last comment.
Perfect. Let me land this. So to your point, absolutely, the pool parties. You're right, because I'm not invited to those pool parties, as we all know. So let's go there. But a lot of times it's fear, because the thing is, when they have those meetings and you stand up, your name goes on a paper. Your name is now ostracized. Your name is put out in public. So you may lose your job. You may lose an opportunity. So we still have that fear among us because of the government, because of those things. So a lot of people are not standing up. A lot of people are not showing their strength. A couple years ago, a bookstore was raided. People who just banned kinky sex, their names were put all in Broward County publications. They lost their jobs just for being caught having sex. Lewd, lascivious is what they put it. So there's fear amongst those things. Not that people don't care. They're just afraid of the retribution that comes by standing up and taking a stand.
But these bigots aren't afraid to go there.
All right, guys,
and talk against them.
We're done. Okay.
for now.
LGBTQ History Month is important. They want to see race.
Yes.
Educate yourselves and educate your little millennial friends, or maybe educate the millennial you're effing tonight. All right?
All right.